This meeting has been a long time coming, hasn't it? You've come a long ways, literally, and I suspect figuratively as well.
The year is 2008. After some troubling times for Black Isle Studios, the Fallout license eventually went to Bethesda Softworks and they used it to make and release Fallout 3. Just under 2 years later, the license was lent out to Obsidian Entertainment to develop their own entry called Fallout New Vegas. As of right now, it just turned 9 years old. It was worked on by many of the original staff that worked on the original Fallout games, but does that translate into a good Fallout game, and how well does it compare to Fallout 3?
She manages to impress.
Being based on the same engine and overall structure as Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas is largely the same as that game overall. Of course, there are some moderate changes here and there. Perhaps the most noteworthy is that there's now a proper iron sight rather than Fallout 3's awkward little zoom-in. Companions also have wheel selections, which is nice, and you can choose from 4 overarching factions instead of just being railroaded into supporting the Brotherhood of Steel. Another little interesting addition, although one I didn't really make use of, is Hardcore Mode. It adds mechanics for thirst, hunger, and a need to sleep that you have to maintain to survive and keep from being debuffed. It's great for people looking for a survival game, but I'm more of a traditional RPG guy who likes to take his sweet time, so I have yet to play through it. Maybe I will someday, but that day isn't right now. Another noteworthy addition is that in the Strip as well as in Freeside, you can actually gamble. Namely, you can buy chips from the major casinos and use them to play blackjack and slots. Your luck skill factors into how often you'll win, so a luck of 10 is very handy for getting chips very quickly. Of course, there's a limit to how many you can win before the casino eventually decides you've cleaned them out enough and bans you from playing anymore. I wouldn't feel too bad though, at least you tend to get a sweet and some nice bonus items like Brahmin steak along the way, not to mention the boatload of caps when you cash all those chips in. Unfortunately though, the game was under strained development and it shows. I haven't seen it personally, but I've heard the game was especially buggy earlier on, the most infamous being Doc Mitchell's head randomly spinning around like he's possessed or something. Basically, it's a Bethesda Creation Engine game, so I recommend mods if you want to get the best experience. For this reason, I recommend getting it on PC unless you absolutely have to get it on PS3 360. There is a morality karma system like in Fallout 3, but it's heavily de-emphasized here, and reputation with different communities is considered much more important this time around. Get very good reputation with a place and you'll get perks like discounts at stores or even having a radio to call in for backup with the NCR. Get very bad reputation though, and you might even find yourself being hunted down. Specifically, if you have a bad reputation with Caesar's Legion, or if the NCR catches you working with Caesar's Legion, you'd better be prepared to get ambushed suddenly and often. This is very similar to what happens if your karma is very high or low in Fallout 3, and you can wear faction armor to fool those that hate you. Just don't expect it to work on high-profile members like Rangers who will be more likely to recognize your face. The usual things you'd expect like addiction to chems, leveling up, radiation and the like are all present and accounted for. One big difference, however, is that you get perks every other level rather than every level like in Fallout 3. You also get your choice of up to 2 quirks in the beginning that have ups and downs. Personally, I always go for the Wild Wasteland perk as one of the options, since it adds in silly Easter eggs like in previous Fallout games that were deemed not serious enough for the main game. Another addition is that you can now craft things, although I never really found myself using it all that much. I'm sure it's more necessary in a harder mode, or especially hardcore mode, but the game's generous enough at the level I had that I never really found it required. Also worth noting is that skill checks and dialogue aren't percentage of working like they were in Fallout 3. Instead, you either have enough that you can pass it, or you just don't. That way you can't just abuse quick saves until you happen to pass it by random chance, and I will admit to being guilty of that myself. Overall, Fallout New Vegas is a nice little moderate upgrade over Fallout 3 when it comes to gameplay. You shouldn't expect anything that's going to knock your socks off here. Mods are still very much recommended for this kind of game, but the little quality of life improvements do a lot to make it more bearable for a vanilla experience. You know, if you're stubborn and absolutely have to go across that route, or if you just have the console versions.
You've made your last delivery, kid. Sorry you got twisted up in this scene. From where you're kneeling must seem like an 18-carat run of bad luck. Truth is, the game was rigged from the start.
Alright, the game's writing, in my opinion, is where Fallout New Vegas truly shines. I understand that there are some obnoxious people that like to kiss up to Obsidian and just completely crap over Bethesda, but honestly, I think the story is where they truly shine the best. Even Caesar, the clear-cut evil option in my opinion, at least has a fully mapped-out explanation for the reason he does the things he does, and there are even people online who argue on behalf of it.
The NCR has all the problems of the ancient Roman Republic. Extreme bureaucracy, corruption, extensive senatorial infighting. Just as with the ancient Republic, it is natural that a military force should conquer and transform the NCR into a military dictatorship.
Rather than just saying something simplistic like, well, it's too complicated for you to understand, or, well, just take our word for it, they actually go into great depths about his philosophies and why he believes that going back to Rome is better for the wasteland. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think he's kinda crazy, but at least he has his reasons. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The game starts out with you being a package courier who was intercepted by the Great Khans and a man named Benny who proceeds to shoot you in the head. For anyone else, this would be the end of their story, but this is just the beginning for the courier as he miraculously survives this and is brought to Doc Mitch by a Securitron of House named Vic. From there, the game suggests you want to find the guy who shot you, but this is merely a suggestion. Unlike Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, you don't have a family motivation to move on, so just wanting to screw around and do your own thing actually makes more sense here. That's the great thing about a Western open world RPG, you're usually free to do whatever you want and put off doing the main story until you actually want to. Given that you're apparently the big MacGuffin anyway, no other faction will actually make headway until you decide to help one of them gain the upper hand. Of course, I personally go with Robert House because he's no more morally questionable than any other of the factions and he actually has an ultimate goal for humanity beyond just keeping the peace. The DLC especially adds a lot to the table with some very interesting stories. Arguably, Old World Blues doesn't even have a clear-cut villain, just some brains in jars that have clearly gone insane for mental degradation, and I like to beat it in a way where everyone's alive and subdued. In my opinion, the Lonesome Road even makes a better finale than the Hover Dam fight. I get why the damn fight is so damn important because it assures victory for your damn faction, but the Lonesome Road feels more personal since it involves someone who's a courier like you who had to witness the unintended consequences of your actions. He seems like the closest that Fallout New Vegas has to a real rival, and talking him into coming around and joining you is pretty satisfying. Of course, if you somehow manage to piss off the NCR, Caesar, and Mr. House all beyond the point of being able to side with him, there's always a fourth option. A hack Securitron named the Yes Man who blindly follows your every command that you can find in Benny's hideout. You can even take your aggression out on him in every sick way you want and it won't matter, he just transfers into a new Securitron and continues being a sentient little doormat. The closest he gets to being cross with you is if you sabotage your own potential robot army. He'll in the nicest way possible call you a moron. The Brotherhood of Steel also makes an appearance here, and they're more like the classic Brotherhood of Steel than Fallout 3's altruistic exception. So, you know, basically xenophobes who hoard technology and are very hesitant to accept outsiders of any kind. The process is actually much easier if you recently befriended Veronica, whom they basically shoved to the side to get her wild new ideas of actually being sustainable out of their hair. There's even a remnant of the Enclave on board, and you can go through a quest to get them to side with the NCR or Caesar's Legion. Given the House and Yes Man paths are more NCR friendly, you'll most likely be having them go down that route unless you just like being the evil guy and joining the Roman slavers. Another nice little inclusion is Jacobstown from previous Fallouts, and the smooth-talking Marcus even makes his reappearance. In general, I like that the game does more with super mutants than with Fallout 3.
Good. Glad you didn't kill them. Letting them walk away proves we're not bloodthirsty mutants.
In Fallout 3, they were basically all hostile with a couple of exceptions, but New Vegas has many super mutants of all kinds that act more human. There are some like Tabitha who function more like enemies, but can be made friendly with some effort on the player's part. I must say the whole subplot in Jacobstown with the Nightkin is also pretty interesting. Basically, to sum it up, the writing is Fallout New Vegas' greatest strength by far. I'm not gonna say that it's some gift from God written on a golden tablet for us lowly mortals and that Bethesda is the ultimate devil for taking Fallout away, but I have to say Obsidian's writing is superior. Most notably, I think Bethesda's a little too black and white with their choices, while New Vegas seems to allow more flexibility with gray options and being more nuanced. While I don't think that Obsidian should be given the series based solely on that, I could see an argument based on this. Okay, presentation is probably Fallout New Vegas' weaker arena, at least in terms of graphics. While the gameplay is improved and the writing is stellar, the game is largely the same in terms of graphical quality as Fallout 3. It's understandable, it does use the same engine, and Obsidian wasn't exactly given a lot of time to complete it, but you probably aren't going to have a good looking experience if you go full vanilla. For that reason, I suggest at least getting the realistic wasteland lighting mod because it removes the ugly filter and really allows the colors to pop. Amazing how different it can look when it doesn't have a sepia-looking filter slapped all over it. The limitations in the animations of the engine are perhaps best seen in Christine from Dead Money. For most of it, she's mute and she only communicates through body language, but the described language is at complete odds with her actual actions on screen. It's obvious they only had a limited amount of animations to pick from, and they tried to match it, but it's completely off most of the time. I'll admit, this is one advantage in favor of Bethesda, since while the creation engine is really showing its age and they really need to pull an It Takes 6 and restructure from the ground up, Fallout 4 is also much more polished in that arena. The Fallout 4 New Vegas project I saw looks substantially better than New Vegas' vanilla mode, and even better than most graphical mods for it. I think this is a good argument for Bethesda handling the framework and having Obsidian handle the RPG and written elements. I think if the two of them actually work together, they could create something much better than either one could completely alone, but that's just my opinion. The voice acting, though, the part they have more control over, is actually pretty good. It runs the gauntlet from being different personalities well enough. Marcus isn't the same voice, but it's still pretty nice to listen to, and Lily being a grandmother with a super mutant's voice is just great.
And are those penises I see wriggling on its feet? Disgusting.
The included New Vegas songs on the radio are fine, especially Ain't That a Kick in the Head, but I'd rather use a custom radio to put it in my own music, and not just because YouTube would copyright strike it faster than you can say, Johnny Guitar. Overall, the presentation is a mixed bag. Graphically, it's the weakest part of Fallout New Vegas since it uses the 3 engine, which has not aged well at all. I will say that the environments are at least pretty fun to explore around in, and the strip is pretty cool, but don't expect a huge improvement over 3 because you're not going to find one here. On the plus side, at least the voice acting is fine, and with mods it can look much better. So, is Fallout New Vegas the best in the 3D series so far? Overall, I have to say yes, but definitely not in everything. There are a few caveats. While the writing is very well done, as are the RPG elements, the presentation is barely an improvement, and the gameplay is only moderately better than Fallout 3. While it may be easy to beat up on Bethesda all the time, I have to say Fallout 4 has the much better gameplay and graphical structure from what I've seen. Seriously though, I think an ideal situation would be Bethesda hiring Obsidian on to do the writing and RPG structure while they handle all the other aspects. New Vegas' better aspects certainly make it enjoyable despite its faults, but it's not perfect by any standard. My verdict, as mentioned before, is you should get it for PC and use mods to help polish up its shortcomings. By doing that, its better aspects can really make it shine all the better. You could feasibly do it on vanilla, but I really wouldn't recommend it. It's definitely a much worse experience for it. That has been my review of Fallout New Vegas. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.